to.
Good evening, and welcome to this evening's virtual conversation with the Office of Financial Assistance and Veterans Affairs for admitted students and their families. I'm Devan Thompson, Senior Associate Director for Admissions Events, and I will be moderating tonight's event off camera. This is our first virtual event with the Office of Financial Aid, specifically for admitted students, and we thank you for your interest in participating. Joining me this evening from the Office of Financial Aid and Veterans Affairs are DJ Simpson, Director of Student Services and Programs, and Erica Harrison-Jones, Associate Director for Scholarships. To maintain social distancing, all representatives are participating remotely from separate locations. This evening's event will last about 30 minutes. We will start with opening remarks from DJ and then jump into questions pre-submitted through the survey found in the event eBite. Throughout tonight's chat, Erica will also be taking live submitted questions through the chat box function. With that, I'll turn it over to DJ for a brief introduction for this evening's event. DJ?
Thank you, Devin. On behalf of the leadership team of the Office of Financial Assistance and Veterans Affairs at the College of Charleston, we welcome you to our event. We understand that as students prepare to make decisions about where to attend college in the fall, there are likely last-minute questions that you are seeking answers to. We appreciate you pre-submitting questions, and the goal is to get to as many of them as possible tonight. If you submit a question and we are unable to get to it this evening, please submit your question via email to financialaid@cfc.edu, and one of our counselors will respond to you in a timely fashion. We recognize that a college education is a major expense in families' budgets, and it's important to know that there are federal, state, and institutional sources available to help students meet some of those expenses. Most students are evaluated automatically for these resources, either upon application to the College of Charleston or once the FAFSA is received and has been submitted completed. I also want to remind you that we also have a financial aid presentation that you can review on the virtual visitor centers via the admissions website that may also answer additional questions that you may have. We are now ready to begin the question and answer portion of the event. Devin, can you begin with the first question?
Absolutely. All right, DJ, our first question asks, I'm certain that I qualified for the South Carolina Life Scholarship, but the College of Charleston portal reflects the South Carolina Hope Scholarship. Can you tell me why that is?
That's possibly because if a student self-reported their SAT, ACT scores, the system would not have awarded them the scholarship. Please have those scores sent to us from CTS, ETS, so that we can get those recorded, and then we can evaluate you for the Life Scholarship.
All right. Our next question. Has the initial eligibility criteria for the South Carolina Life Scholarship changed for freshmen due to the coronavirus?
At this point, the South Carolina Commission on Higher Ed has not made any changes with the exception of one. They are going to allow students to use that July ACT date to qualify for the state scholarships. Now, what that means is if you're close to qualifying for life or qualifying for Palmetto Fellows, you can register for that class, and register for that test, and if you make the appropriate test scores, you can then boost up your scholarship opportunities.
Thank you. Next question. Please explain the Palmetto Promise Scholarship. Is this awarded in addition to the South Carolina Palmetto Fellow Scholarship?
So what the Palmetto Promise is saying is the student is a Palmetto Fellows recipient, a valedictorian or salutatorian at a state, public or charter school, then we will guarantee that they get at least $4,000 worth of institutional aid. That should come in either merit scholarships or some other form of financial aid that we'll offer from the institutional point of view. So it is in addition to the Palmetto Fellow Scholarship.
Great. Our next question asks, are there websites or other avenues that can be used for searching for outside scholarships?
There are many avenues. If you go to our financial aid webpage, we have a listing of different resources, different avenues you can go through. Also, in certain cases, you need to check with your employer, students, parents, check with your employers, check with any civic organization you've been involved with. And of course, never stop checking for those local scholarships. Even locally, in some cases, you can go to a different high school's website to find out about those local scholarships. And parents and students, you need to continue searching for those scholarships throughout that student's career at the institution. So many times students come in with these scholarships as freshmen, but they're non-renewable. So you would want to go back to that source if it's a non-renewable scholarship and find out, one, if they have a continuing scholarship that they may be able to apply for, or if they can reapply for that scholarship that they received. And like I said, check with our website, and there are also certain search engines that can do it. Yes, there's scholarships out there for smartest people in the world. Those would be left-handed people. So any of my left-handers out there. But yes, there's scholarships that are there for those very specific reasons, but you may want to seek out those, the National Cancer Society, Diabetes Association. Check with some of those resources as well to see if they may be able to assist you.
Thanks, DJ. Those are some really good tips. Our next question asks, how and when can my parents apply for a Parent Plus loan for the College of Charleston? And when are departmental scholarships announced?
I'll take the second one first. Departmental scholarships should have already been awarded. We try to have all of those out there by March 15th. Now, in reference to the Parent Plus loan, parents have to apply for that loan. It is credit-based, and they have to apply on loan at a government's website, studentloans.gov. That date right now is going to be June 1st. So if anything changed, we'll update that. But at this point, we want parents to wait until June 1st to apply for that scholarship. Apply for that Parent Plus loan.
Thank you, DJ. Our next question. We plan to apply for a Parent Plus loan. Once the required fees for tuition and room and board are deducted from the amount, how will my daughter access additional funds for the remaining miscellaneous costs?
So I'm thinking that means, so if your student receives financial aid and it exceeds the cost that the college is charging you, then what will happen is it'll apply to the student's account, pay whatever they owe, and then anything that's left over will be set up as a refund. We recommend the students set up direct deposit so it goes straight into the bank account, but if they do not set up direct deposit, that refund will be cut as a check and sent out to the student.
Great. This next question is kind of along those same lines, and it asks, if there is a remaining balance in the Parent Plus loan after my student's first year of college, can that amount assist to cover costs for her second or sophomore year?
What would happen, as I mentioned before, if you had excess funds, it would be set up as a refund. Now, some parents and students may decide they want to hold on to that refund if they're not using it now, but I wouldn't recommend doing that because you're going to end up paying interest on those funds. What I would recommend is, remember, when you apply for the aid at the beginning of the term, when you get your bill, it'll tell you that if nothing changes, if you have a negative balance, that's a credit balance, that would be a refund. And to me, at that point in time, you would reach out to us and ask us to reduce that parent loan so that you're not getting that large refund, because next year you're going to be evaluated on next year's costs, and that's when that parent loan would be awarded as well. In addition, anyone that's receiving financial aid, it's supposed to go for the college cost that it's based on. That's the reason they make you sign the FAFSA. But that would be the best solution, I would think, is for them to first discover what their costs are for that particular semester. And then if the parent loan exceeds that by more than they need for maybe miscellaneous expenses, contact the financial aid office so that we can then go through and reduce that parent loan. So you don't even have to worry about paying the interest on those funds.
Thank you, DJ. Our next question asks, our daughter is an international student. How can she apply for loans, grants, and other options of financing?
Well, for international students, if they're not a citizen or eligible non-citizen, they wouldn't be eligible for any federal aid. So we wouldn't be able to do any federal loans, and 9 out of 10 times they wouldn't be able to do the alternative loans. There are some sources for them, but for most international students to get what we call an alternative or a private loan, they usually have to have a permanent resident or a U.S. citizen that has good credit and has been here for at least 2 years as a co-signer. But there are some loan opportunities out there. Beyond that, I would recommend that they go to the International Students website through admissions and find out any resources that we have available there as well.
Great, thank you. Our next question asks, my student has received the Pell Grant from several schools, but did not receive any financial aid from the College of Charleston. Can you explain how College of Charleston looks at financial aid information differently? And can you also explain how the estimated family contribution amount on the FAFSA determines a student's financial aid package?
Let me start off with the EFC, the estimated financial EFC, the estimated cost of financial aid. So what happens is when you complete the FAFSA, it puts that income information into a formula. That formula calculates your EFC, expected family contribution, based on 0 up to $999,999. Then what we, the college, do is we take our cost of attendance and we subtract that number from it to determine it. So that's why if you attend different schools, you may get different forms of aid because it's based on their particular cost of attendance. An example, if our cost of attendance was $20,000 and your EFC was $20,000 or higher, that difference would be 0 and you wouldn't be eligible for any need-based aid. So that's where we use the EFC as far as determining how a student qualifies for need, but it's based on our actual cost of attendance. What was the other part of that, Devan?
I know there were a lot of questions in that one. I think you covered most of it, but is there any different way that we look at aid compared to a different school?
Oh, so someone was asking if they got Pell Grant somewhere else. Well, students are sometimes selected for what's called a process called verification. And if you're selected for verification, you're required to turn certain documents into the school before we can determine your financial aid. Some schools award students aid up front prior to completing verification, or in some cases, that school may have already completed verification and we have not. So the key to that is make sure the student checks their email and goes, and if they get an unsatisfied requirement, to log into their My Charleston and check the financial aid requirements tab, eligibility tab, to determine whether or not there's some documents we need. Because once we make corrections, that may either give them the Pell Grant as a result of reducing certain situations, but in some cases it can do the opposite if for some reason there were some mistakes on the FAFSA. But if a student was selected for verification, they just need to make sure that they turn those documents into us so that we can determine their eligibility.
Thank you, DJ. Our next question is, what is the deadline for accepting the federal direct unsubsidized loan? And are we going to receive payment plan information in the mail, or is the information only offered online?
Well, the information is available online. And if any student is receiving an unsubsidized loan, they're required to do 2 things: entrance counseling and a master promissory note. The entrance counseling explains the student's rights and responsibilities as far as being a loan. And that's where it'll also explain the payment plans, which is students normally go into repayment 6 months after they graduate from their program, or 6 months after they cease to be enrolled at least half-time. And for an undergraduate, that's 6 hours. So if they drop below 6 hours, the clock starts running. If it gets up to 6 months, then that student goes into repayment and they have to repay on that student loan. And in certain cases, if that parent took out a parent loan, they would have to start making payments on that parent loan as well. Did that answer your question?
Yes, thank you, DJ. All right, our next question. When is tuition due and how far in advance should we plan to secure a college loan?
Well, tuition is going to be due based on certain cases when you have made your deposit and when you have done your orientation. So when a student sign up for orientation, the best way to find out about that is to go to the website, because they have a structure there determining exactly when you have registered for your classes, because you won't get charged tuition until you've already registered for classes. So it's based on when you actually register for classes, that'll set up the date that it actually has to be paid by. If students are trying to look at any payment plans or anything of that nature, that would be available as well online for them.
Thank you. And on the subject of payment plans, that's what our next question is. How does the payment plan program work, and are there fees that are incurred? And also, what is the deadline to take advantage of the payment plan option?
So the payment plan option, like I said, that's a treasurer's office function. I really recommend you go there because it's based on when you register for classes and when your bill is due, that they'll determine 1, which payment plan you can choose, and 2, what the deadline is. The payment plan if a student has financial aid, what it'll do is it will subtract the financial aid that they're approved for, and then the payment plan would be based on usually 5, 4, 3 payments based on the remaining balance. So parents in certain cases, if they didn't want to do a parent loan, could elect to do a payment plan, and they would make either 5 or 4 timely payments per semester. Payment plan, I believe, is $40 per semester, and it's available for fall and spring. At this point, it's not available over the summer, but that would be available once a student selects that. It'll automatically break everything down and show it to them on their e-bill.
Great, thank you, DJ. Our next question asks, my daughter paid her $500 enrollment and housing deposit fee in advance. Will that be deducted from the total room and board expense?
So yes, your deposit that you have credited to your account will reduce your balance. So let's think about it being like a bank account. All of your charges are going to go on in your account. Tuition and fees, room and board, books if you charge them, any other fees that you already have on your account. So whatever is on your account at that point in time, your aid will pay that and it will be reduced. So that deposit will reduce your fall bill by the deposit that's set up for fall, and it will reduce your spring bill by the deposit that's set up for spring term.
Thank you. Next question. How will we be notified of the financial aid that we qualified for this upcoming academic year?
Okay, key to this is students. Once you've been accepted, you have that College of Charleston email address. That's the only place that we're going to be sending emails out to you. Normally it's going to be one of two, either missing requirements or an award notification. So anytime a student receives an award is canceled, increased, or decreased, they should get an award notification from us telling them to log into their My Charleston. Once they log into that My Charleston portal, you need to click on the financial aid tab and then either eligibility if it's an unsatisfied requirement or award if it's an award notification. And then once they select the award year, that will let them know. Once they do the award, select the award year for 2000, 2020, 2021. And then once they look at the awards, there'll be a number of tabs there. An award overview, terms and conditions, accept awards, and award summary. They need to click on that terms and conditions tab and accept the terms and conditions tab prior to them being able to accept any awards. But they can always view their awards by logging into their My Charleston, clicking on the financial aid tab, the award tab, and then select the award year, and it should indicate any awards they have. And just remember, in order for them to be able to accept the awards that have been offered to them, they have to first submit the terms and conditions. Now, in some cases, if students don't want all of the aid, for example, loans that may have been offered to them, when they're on that award tab and after they've accepted the terms and conditions on the side of the loan, they can indicate accept and put a smaller amount in there. If they do that, what will happen is then that loan will be split between fall and spring equally based on the amount that they accept. But they do all that through their My Charleston portal in the financial aid award tab.
Thanks, DJ. It's such a good reminder for students to start familiarizing themselves with that My Charleston portal, just for a variety of different offices on campus as well. Okay, our next question asks, our financial situation has changed because my spouse's position was eliminated. Is it possible to get a second review for financial aid? My spouse was the primary earner.
Definitely, regardless whether the spouse is a primary earner or not, if there's been a change in circumstance, we can in certain cases look at that. So what would happen is, remember, the financial aid is based on 2018 income information. They're assuming that that's static and that's the way your salary is going to continue. If you've had a change of circumstance, then what we have is we have two tools. One for the parent is called a PCAR, Parent Contribution Adjustment Request. That is where a parent will fill it out, write a detailed letter explaining what the situation is, provide the documentation to us, and what we'll do is we take that information if approved and we'll change the figures, put it back into the formula to see if somehow that may generate a lower EFC. By generating a lower EFC, in some cases that can make a student eligible for additional forms of financial aid. So if it's the parents that have had that unique situation or that unfortunate situation, then they would complete what's called a PCAR. PCAR, and for the upcoming year, 21, PCAR 21. if it's the student, because in some cases, students may have been working and had some substantial income in 2018, but that's not continued or will continue in the future. They would do what's called an SCAR, Student Contribution Adjustment Request 21. And then that's when we'll take that information, put it back into the formula to see exactly what type of income it can, how it may reduce the EFC. I do want to take mine though. The EFC goes from 0 up to 999,999. So parents can fall anywhere between that spectrum. So in order for a student to be eligible for a Pell Grant, that EFC has to be between 0 and 5,711. 5,712 and higher are not eligible for the Pell Grant. So in some cases, we may be able to lower that EFC, but according to where you fall at on that spectrum, it may lower the EFC, but it may not change the type of financial aid you're eligible for based on need and the volume of students that may have a higher need and the amount of income that we have to award. But yes, we can take that into consideration, complete a PCAR, write a detailed letter, provide the documentation, and forward that to the financial aid office.
Thanks, DJ. That's very reassuring information to have. Our next question asks, my 2018 tax return shows a 401k withdrawal as income. This withdrawal was necessary due to being laid off and not being employed. How does that impact our financial need?
So like I said, the FAFSA right now is being based on 2018 income information if the FAFSA was filled out correctly. What we can do, like I said, if that's a one-time lump sum and it's not continuing to happen, the same thing. Complete the PCAR if it's the parent, or if it's youth student, complete the SCAR, write the letter and provide the appropriate documentation. And then what we could do is we could either look at eliminating from that tax return, or in certain cases, based on other status, we may have to look at 2019. But 9 out of 10 times, if it's a one-time lump sum, what we can do is we can take that out, reevaluate you based on the new figures, and see what that does as far as possibly giving you additional financial aid eligibility.
Great. All right, moving on to our next question. My daughter has money earmarked in an account for college. Is this money looked at in one lump sum, divided over 4 years, or reviewed as a percentage when calculating her financial need?
Well, if it's like a 501, if it's a college saving plan or tuition, something of that nature, if it's in the student name, parents, the key is if it's in the student's name, make sure you list it on the FAFSA as an asset of the parent. It will have less of an effect and it should go on the parent. But yes, the total amount of assets you have at the time that you complete that FAFSA would count as possible income on the FAFSA. Just what happened is the following year, any funds that you had expended, for example, if there was 100,000, you spent 25,000, the next year that number would probably be 75,000. So yes, it would count until the funds are expended.
Great, thank you. Our next question asks, can a student work on campus without a student visa?
Now, for a student, if you're talking about for federal work study, which is an award that we give students that have high need on the FAFSA, no, they would not if they're not an eligible citizen or an eligible non-citizen or a citizen. So if they don't meet those requirements, they wouldn't be able to complete the FAFSA, and they would not be able to do what's called federal work studies, where students work on campus and are supplemented through federal funds. However, they would need to contact student employment to determine exactly what their visa is and whether or not that would afford them to be able to work on campus in what we call non-federal work study, which is the majority of employment on campus for students.
All right, and now to our last question. How can I contact the financial aid office? Is there a way to request to speak to a counselor one-on-one?
At this point, we're requesting that you please send your information via email. What we are doing is we are implementing what we call a soft phone network, where we will be able to use our cell phones and network in on, but that has not been completely implemented as of this point. So at this point, given the volume of emails And with the remote access, we're asking parents to please be patient with us, but please send emails to us if you can. And when available, when I am on campus, because we're not on campus a lot, I do make phone calls when I can. But at this point, we're asking until we get the phone system implemented to please submit emails to us. We're working them as quickly as we can. And then once it changes, we'll make sure that we notify the student body and parents via our website.
All right, thank you, DJ. That concludes our question and answer portion for this evening. We hope the information that we've covered this evening has been helpful for you all. And as a quick reminder, if your student has any additional questions regarding next steps towards enrollment or would like to speak to their admissions counselor, please encourage them to explore our new virtual visitor center that can be found on the college's main page. Thank you all for taking the time to submit your questions and tune in, and a special thanks to Erica and DJ this evening. We hope you all have a great night. Goodbye.